Of the Youth Parliament held at the House of Parliament on the 20th day of October 2021 be taken as read.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the minutes of the meeting of the Youth Parliament held at this Honorable House on the 20th day of October 2021 be taken as read.
Announcement by Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, let me now remind you of the rules governing the sitting of this House. You are to only address the chair and only speak when called upon. There should be absolutely no reading of speeches and no quoting without permission. You are to only speak once on a question proposed to the House. The option to rise on a point of order where a rule of the House is being broken, and you have the option to rise on a point of clarity to provide clarification on a matter being discussed. Be mindful of these rules and other standing orders as we proceed in today's sitting.
Resolutions.
Honorable member.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move a motion for the House to suspend the relevant standing orders for the members to participate virtually.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the relevant standing orders be suspended to enable honorable members to participate virtually. Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders be suspended to enable members to participate virtually. As many of that favor say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. This Honorable House is now in session.
Madam Speaker, I beg that the bill for an act shortly entitled the Child Protection and Adoption Act be read a second time.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill for an act shortly entitled Child Protection and Adoption Act be read a second time. Honorable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What is done to children, they will do to society. A quote by Carl Menninger. Annually, we host child marches, breakfasts, and shows, each in an attempt to foster a positive nationwide environment for our children. Today, the government is advocating for child protection through the implementation of the Child Protection and Adoption Act. We recognize the importance of our children and the importance of nurturing safe environments in order to maximize their potential. We recognize this importance so that our children can grow up in health encompassing their mental, physical, and social well-being. Madam Speaker, I stand firmly with the government who seeks to pass the Child Protection and Adoption Act. Madam Speaker, the issues which surround our children cannot be dismissed in our debate today. Issues of statutory rape and incest jeopardize our children. They need our protection. Madam Speaker, may you please permit me to quote from an article by CaribbeanWomen.org?
Permission granted.
Thank you. The article states that children under 16 years of age cannot in law give consent to sexual intercourse and a wide range of other sexual activities. They are, however, vulnerable to sexual violence and sexual exploitation. Many children are forced or lured into sexual relationships with adults, largely because of their financial need and inadequate family and social support, end quote. It is a criminal offense for anyone to have sexual intercourse with a child who is under 16 years of age. This is known commonly as statutory rape. Based on news reports relayed by the Grenada Broadcasting Network, the Special Victims Unit of Grenada recorded an increase in reports of sex crimes during the first 3 months of 2021. The statistics showed an upsurge in adult sexual involvement with minors 8 years and under. Sexual abuse like this is only one form of abuse which our children are exposed to if they are not properly protected. Abuse takes many forms and can be verbal, sexual, as mentioned before, physical, emotional, and psychological. Unfortunately, in unfavorable situations, our children suffer from these many forms of abuse. Our purpose here today is not to become adept in naming or describing the various types of abuse, but rather to understand how detrimental of an effect they can have on the life of a child. According to an article by betterhealth.org, in households where abuse is rampant, children, through observation and through experience, are taught to solve their problems with violence rather than by peaceful means, and by extension, are likely to copy their parental role models in their adulthood endeavors. Madam Speaker, in extreme cases, the trauma which a child may face can have extreme psychological implications on him or her. This depicts, among other things, the urgent need for this bill to be implemented here today. An article by the Caribbean Council, published in 2017, sums up the problems affecting youth and children in Caribbean societies. The problems include a lack of opportunity, discrimination based on sexual or gender orientation, the absence of generational change, and high levels of unemployment. Though this act may not solve all of these problems, it takes a step in solving some which may be brought about by the consequences of a child growing up in an abusive household. Madam Speaker, we must be aware of the importance of protecting the rights of children as a vulnerable group in society, and of our responsibility as the government to care and protect our children. This act protects the rights of our children by not only keeping them from harm, but by providing them with fundamental things which they should have during their childhood. With the cooperation of the Director, Association, Child Protection Authority, and other figures outlined within the legislation, it is sure to be successful in protecting and caring for other children, our children. An article by UNICEF, published in 2018, sums up the rights of children. Besides the general human rights, which all adults are entitled to, the article emphasizes and recognizes the fundamental human dignity of all children and the urgency of ensuring their well-being and development. Furthermore, it makes clear the idea that a basic quality of life should be the right of all children rather than a privilege enjoyed by few. Thus, children, as humans, have a right to life. However, it is very important that their life be of a particular standard. This is very important. Certain basic criteria are necessary in helping a child to develop to their fullest potential. Therefore, while not neglecting human rights in general, we must single out specifically the rights of children, especially as it is most relevant to our discussion here today. Another article by UNICEF states, Madam Speaker, may you please permit me to quote?
Permission granted.
Thank you. Children start off life as totally dependent beings and must rely on adults for the nurture and guidance that they need to go towards independence. When a child's parents cannot meet the needs of the child, it is up to the state to find an alternative that is in the best interest of the child. End quote. Madam Speaker, in catering to the needs of children, not only will we be fulfilling our role as government, but we would also be carrying out our moral duty as human beings. Moreover, we are upholding the values of our society by guiding our children on what is believed to be the right path. Madam Speaker, to neglect is to wreck, and to ignore is to bore, wreck the lives of our children and bore in them deep holes of sorrow and despair. We must avoid this. Madam Speaker, what makes this act different and necessary for our society is that it targets and includes mandatory reporting, investigation and assessment, as well as data collection. Contrary to the previously passed Child Protection Act of 1998, which did not make mention of these areas, mandatory reporting is catered for in Section 27 of the present bill we are debating. This aims to enable early detection of cases of harm to children which might otherwise escape the relevant authorities or helping agencies. Matthew and Bross, 2008, argues that a society without a mandatory reporting system will be far less able to protect children and assist families, as many cases of abuse will remain hidden. Accordingly, the legislation outlines under subsection 1 who ought to report, and under 5 outlines the penalties for one who does not comply. Moreover, investigation and assessment, which is contained under section 30, gives a detailed listing of how and when investigations and assessments are to be carried out for and in the best interest of the child. Data collection, which is another area not facilitated by the previous bill, is now catered for so that records be kept in a private, prescribed, and orderly manner. With regards to adoption specifically, the bill sufficiently touches on who can adopt, the requirements for adoption, who can request adoption, among other things. Adoption is a central focus of the Act and gives hope to a child having a better life in a better household. It is a process that must be carefully carried out in the interest of the child and to a much lesser extent, the adoption family. Keeping in mind the needs of a child, it must be ensured that the new care providers in question are equipped to handle and foster that child with all he or she would need. This is why the bill has a criteria for persons who would adopt the child in question. The requirements must be met before placing that child with a new family. Madam Speaker, through you, we are asking those charged with implementation to please also stand up for our children, do your duty, and implement this bill. Recognizing the rights of children, recognizing our responsibility as the government, and recognizing the issues which affect our society, we are taking the initiative to prevent exacerbation as well as prevent wholly damage to our children. The Act, Madam Speaker, is what is needed to aid children who are in need of care and protection. We do not want or need our children to be violated physically, neither psychologically. We must implement this legislation to ensure that children are in environments in which they can trust their guardians to protect them and keep them from harm. With the passage of this act, not only can we prevent our children from being victims of heinous crimes and abuse, but also we can teach them so that they grow up to be parents to protect their children and grandchildren. Therefore, Madam Speaker, thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Every child deserves the right to grow up in a safe, stable, and nurturing family environment. However, the harrowing reality is not every home is a safe, stable, or nurturing place. Many children grow up in the shadows of terrifying acts of abuse, exploitation, and neglect. Our duty to safeguard their well-being begs the question, what is the ideal balance between the need to respect family life and the need to protect children from harm? From the onset, Madam Speaker, I am sure that we can all agree that there is no ideal balance. Ideal will mean that we won't have to debate matters of this nature at all. But here we are. So the question is, who makes the determination? This legislation promotes the well-being and safety of children and the best interests of the child first and foremost. It gives the state the mandate through the Child Protection Authority to make a determination in the provision of emergency, short-term, and long-term alternative care arrangements. And after a thorough investigation, which has considered the medical, health, social, residential, educational, economic, and other relative factors affecting the life of the child, so that the least intrusive method of intervention is taken. Now, among the possible interventions this bill recommends, it must be stated that the provisions do not bypass the importance of the family. The supervision order allows the child to remain in the family home or community subject to the supervision of the authority in an effort to prevent separation of children from their families, provided that this is in the child's best interest. It further emphasizes that while the supervision order is in force, families should be assisted in overcoming its challenges so that reconciliation can be facilitated. However, Madam Speaker, where a family has completely broken down, this bill recommends a care order which allows for the removal of a child from their home and placement of a child into a child care home, foster care facility, or any other alternative care arrangement. The bill treats this matter with the utmost sensitivity, detailing the criteria and grounds for placing the child into alternative care. It also emphasizes the importance of maintenance of contact between a child and his or her family members, and it stipulates that where it will not conflict with the interests of the child, care arrangements can be done with consent of parents through a written plan of care that is signed by the parents. Madam Speaker, too often we hear of anecdotes of children who have been left in alternative care for far too long. These children enter alternative care, and then their cases are overlooked, and little is done in the way of providing a long-term, stable environment for them. This bill addresses this issue by firstly time-limiting all of the aforementioned orders. Next, it is designed to ensure that there are status reviews occurring every 19 days according to Section 58 of the bill. Status reviews are not only to address the length of time that a child may remain in care, but it is also to ensure that the actual arrangements and the actual conditions and circumstances of the child while they are in care are adequately monitored, and that whatever alternative care is made, whatever alternative care facility the child is placed in meets certain requirements. Now, the aim of alternative care has always been to change the circumstances so that children can be hopefully reunited and returned to stronger family homes. The bill is making a number of references to psychological assessments, to counseling, to psychosocial interventions that are intended to be utilized for this goal of reunification. However, where this is not in a child's best interest, the bill recommends that a custody order which vests full custody to the Child Protection Authority and allows for parental control to be removed so as to facilitate adoption. Moreover, it addresses the issue and the concern of adoption of children as it establishes the adoption committee. It outlines the process before adoption for both domestic and inter-country adoption, and it provides for a register for children who have been adopted and for necessary follow-ups to be made after adoption has taken place. So, Madam Speaker, we all know that there is a lot at stake whenever the conversation turns towards our children, because they are today and they will become tomorrow the mold of what we are casting right here in this honorable house. For this reason, this government is embracing this legislation as a step forward in addressing the significant gaps which exist within our child protection system. Gaps that have been viewed through the lens of child well-being and account for the best interests and the rights of the child. Madam Speaker, there is no ideal. Instead, what we have is an opportunity to mend the broken pieces and show our children we have their best interests at heart.
Honorable Member for St. John.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am here to stand firm with my colleagues on the stance that the Child Protection and Adoption Bill is needed. However, there are several aspects that must be changed in order to ensure that this bill is fully effective. Madam Speaker, let us examine this bill. I commence with the very first point. The bill does not sufficiently address preventative actions for child abuse. Rather, it comes in after the child has been abused to provide care and protection. From my interpretation of the bill, it's like the government is saying, watch, we cannot prevent child abuse now. So when it happens, we could just find a way to deal with it, and then we will call that judge. In the National Sustainable Development Plan 2020 to 2035, goal number 1, high human and social development. Under outcome number 3, under the subsection child care, it says, permit me to quote, Madam Speaker,
Permission granted.
the current system for addressing child abuse, which are the child protection system and the criminal justice system, addresses the issue of child abuse after it has occurred. End of quote. This is perfect proof of my very first point, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill provides inadequate information on what needs to be done to develop family life to prevent child abuse. It does not sufficiently refer to what is necessary to be implemented in households where there are issues to prevent it from escalating to abuse. And the bill does not overly speak about what needs to be implemented in a situation where an incident has occurred in order to get the home sorted out so that the child can return. Madam Speaker, what I would say to the government is to simply take a deep look at the National Sustainable Development Plan 2020 to 2035 under the child care section and utilize it as a guide to updating this present bill in terms of addressing preventative actions for child abuse. The government can strengthen existing programs and implement new ones to complement the child and the criminal justice system. With these new prevention programs targeting public messages directed at would-be perpetrators of child sexual abuse, community-based initiatives that promote unacceptable child abuse, as well as the notion that stopping is everyone's responsibility. Madam Speaker, stiffer penalties for perpetrators, offenders, and upholders, adults who know the abuse exists but do nothing to stop it. Additionally, the government can address in the bill that implementation of new programs to improve school-home relationship and parental involvement, particularly the fathers, in childhood education and the implementation of a subsidized bus system to promote discipline and reduce the risk of potential abuse by bus drivers and conductors of private buses, all as a means of prevention action. And Madam Speaker, this is not coming from far. All of these are stated in the National Sustainable Development Plan. Hence, it's a matter of implementing it and using the National Sustainable Development Plan under goal number 1, high human and social development, outcome number 3, a resilient, inclusive, and peaceful society, as a guideline to update this present act in terms of prevention actions. Mr. Speaker, the members on the other side, biggest problem is implementation, Madam Speaker, sorry. Because the National Sustainable Development Plan has good plans for child care, unless they're trying to fulfill Elimus Gilbert's song. Permit me to quote, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
All they have is ideas, end of quote. Madam Speaker, the bill does not properly address the point at which the state determines that a parent will not be getting back their child. Specifically in the case where the parent's issue is not nearing a resolution. Madam Speaker, in the bill under Section 81 Custody Care Order, it states, if the director assesses that there is not a realistic possibility of restoration pursuant to the provision of this act, it is in the best interest of the child that he no longer lives with his parents and a least restrictive option is not available. The director shall make an application to the court for a custody care? That being said, Madam Speaker, there is a need for the insertion of adequate information that entails the key factors that give the director the right to determine the parent will not be getting back the child. As a normal person reading this, how would I know the director is not being biased or favoring a particular family in this situation? Madam Speaker, the very first time I read this act, I literally shook it to see if section wasn't missing. Was it hiding somewhere like Zacchaeus in the sycamore tree? Madam Speaker, therefore, this point needs to be addressed. My third point and final point, educating the children about the act and their rights. Madam Speaker, do you remember your days in school marching around shouting, child care, yes, child abuse, no way, and kill you dead, you know your child rights? Tell me what you knew about the child abuse bill then and what the children knows about it now. There is one common answer. That's nothing. Therefore, Madam Speaker, permit me 1 more minute, please, to wrap up.
A minute granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I believe we must educate our people on this act and their rights. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I must utter that the bill needs to be adequately addressed to add preventative actions for child abuse, properly address the point at which the state determines that a parent will not be getting back the child, and educate the general population about the act, specifically the children. Madam Speaker, this will allow Grenada to rise up from child abuse and hold its proper place in society. I thank you.
Honorable Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs, Information and Communication Technology.
Children, giving them the life they deserve. In my view, Madam Speaker, human and children rights should be part of our educational curriculum at all educational levels, with training given to professionals who work with and for children, including teachers, law enforcement officers, health professionals, etc. Madam Speaker, according to the bill, Part 1, subsection 3, which states, the primary purpose of this is to provide care and protection to children from abuse and neglect. It was way back in 1990, Grenada had ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child, as well as the optional protocol in children, in armed conflict, sale of children, child pornography, and child prostitution. Madam Speaker, in doing so, we have a legal and ethical obligation to ensure that our legislation adequately meets the standards set out in the convention. In addition, recently, the UNICEF Caribbean Office has also supported the guidelines that are designed to ensure that care arrangements in the Eastern Caribbean comply with the internationally established requirements. It is against this backdrop, Madam Speaker, that I stand in full support for the adoption of the bill by the House, as it seeks to harmonize our laws with the provision of the Convention. Historically, the Ministry of Social Services would investigate a matter, and then it would be referred to the Child Welfare Authority for the removal and placement of a child. This bill poses for the formation of a statutory institution, the Child Protection Authority, as a coordinating body that will do more than just respond to reports and oversee displacement. The authority will have direct responsibility for children being abused or who are at risk of being abused, from reporting through assessment and investigation to follow-up care. After the safety of that child has been reassured, the authority will also be tasked
with the overseeing the operation and delivery of childcare services, as well as the adoption of children in Grenada. Further, the authority will be charged to promote the safety and well-being of our children and establish procedures and policies to strengthen our response to children who have experienced violence and other forms of abuse. With all these vital functions now under one agency, we hope to create a system in which there can be an improvement in the response time and management of cases, as well as advocating on child protection issues. Madam Speaker, we all have a part to play in protecting our nation's children, as well as safeguarding their rights. Therefore, without further delay, I endorse the Child Protection and Adoption Act. Thank you.
Honorable Minister for Labor, Infrastructure Development, Transport, and Physical Development.
Madam Speaker, while working on this bill and trying to understand its importance, I decided to do a little bit of research. So I asked a child care service officer, what are some of the worst child abuse cases you've ever experienced? I received an answer I wasn't prepared to hear. Madam Speaker, can you imagine a 6-year-old child sexually abused, brutally abused by a 30-plus-old stepfather, and not on one, but on several occasions? Madam Speaker, that child is so traumatized that even after 60-plus counseling sessions, that child is still unable to stand before the court without having a nervous breakdown. Madam Speaker, I got chills after listening to this story. I mean, how horrific. It is for reasons like this that I stand here today in full support of the passing and implementation of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill. This bill is very critical and required in order to secure the safety and the protection of Grenada's children. This bill seeks to enhance the way we identify, manage, and respond to the child protection issues here in Grenada. It seeks to create a stronger child protection system in which the best interests of the child are always given priority. To begin with, this bill empowers the Child Protection Authority to provide license to all childcare services in Grenada. In order to safeguard the best interests of the child, CPA will have the right to approve or disapprove of childcare services. This body would be responsible for the security and the protection of the children of Grenada. CPA would therefore promote the child's educational, social, and developmental well-being. A child will receive services that meet his or her individual needs, including the needs of a child with a disability. When these needs are met, the child's physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and cultural development will be enhanced. With the passage of this bill, CPA will be able to ensure that each child receives safe, positive, and nurturing care. According to Section 91 of the bill, a CPA-approved childcare service will provide substitute family care for a child until a natural parent of the child is able to provide accurate care to meet the child's basic need. The child can be reunited with his or her family, or arrangements will be made for the child's custody or other permanent placement. The ultimate purpose of this bill is to ensure that the parents and their children are reunited. However, it doesn't just end there. According to the bill, after reunification, childcare agencies will monitor and communicate with the family on a regular basis to verify that that child is receiving the best possible care. If a child is unable to return to his or her natural parent or go to a foster care, or if the child has neither parent nor a foster parent, he will be cared for and assisted by an approved childcare service and the director until adoption can be arranged. With the passage of this bill, Madam Speaker, CPA will be granted the authority they need to help our children. It is important to make note of Section 92 of the bill, which indicates that where a child has been placed in an approved childcare service under a care order, the manager and the staff of the childcare service shall have parental responsibility for the child. As a result, if a child is unlawfully removed from the approved childcare facilities, the court may issue a recovery order. This can be made by the director or the person who has parental responsibility of the child. A recovery order may direct any person in custody of the child to produce the child on demand to the person authorized in the recovery order, according to Section 94 of the bill. The recovery order would mandate the removal of the child by the person authorized in a recovery manner, or to disclose any information leading to the child's whereabouts. It can also authorize a police officer to search the premises where the child is believed to be staying, and specify the child's name and the person who has parental responsibility of the child. These processes will ensure that the child is properly recovered and placed in a licensed childcare facility. In addition, Madam Speaker, the bill makes provisions for foster care placements. According to Section 89 of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill, which speaks specifically to foster care, and a care order which requires the placement of a child, the director may place the child with a person who is willing to undertake the foster care of the child. In that case, a person who wishes to foster a child may make an application to the director. However, in the case of a relative of the child, they would foster the child without a parent or a guardian without first applying to the director. Foster care will not only assist in the creation of a safe and temporary home for the children, but it also encourages people to consider adoption if it arises. This bill grants CPA the ability to execute principles and rules relating to the fostering processes, and we believe that the barriers of foster care in Grenada can be broken through CPA's initiative. This bill is not just significant, but it's also urgent, Madam Speaker. My colleagues and I have discussed the relevance of this bill and how it will impact the lives of Grenada's family. So while we are doubtlessly questioning and discussing, children are being mistreated and families are breaking apart. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member for St. George Northwest.
Madam Speaker, my heart is in dismay, not because of the rise in COVID-19 cases, but because of this unfinished legislation that is brought before you today. I mean, this act does not serve justice or protect the children of this land. Furthermore, the inadequacy of a court system, lack of actual recipients, and the use of financial settlements made me come to the realization that it's a real problem that we cannot continue to set aside. Unlike the members of government who sit and pretend like everything is peaches and creams, we, the opposing members, plan to do something about it to ensure that the children of today don't get lost in a system like a feather in the wind. Madam Speaker, according to Part 5 of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill, the court may, pursuant to an application made under Section 49, grant the following care orders. A supervision care order placing a child under the supervision of the director while leaving the child in the care of his parents or any other persons designated by the director. B, a care order placing a child in the care of the director. Or C, a care order placing the child in the custody of the state where the parent of the child is unable to provide for the care and protection of the child, and where no other alternative measures are available to protect the child. Madam Speaker, in this section of the bill, I would like to know from my fellow government members, which court would these proceedings be done? Madam Speaker, I ask this with genuine concern, because as it stands, Grenada does not have a family court. According to the Legal Service of India, please permit me to quote, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
And I quote, "The main purpose of a family court is to assist the smooth and effective disposal of cases relating to family matters." End of quote. Madam Speaker, statistics taken from the UK government stated, please permit me to quote.
Permission granted.
And I quote, cases pertaining to family affairs that are done in the family courts are 76% more likely to get resolved much quicker than those done in any other court system. End of quote. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, can you imagine how beneficial it would be if we implemented this type of system? I mean, think about it. Cases pertaining to family matters will be resolved much faster and the accessibility would be greater, which in the end limits the number of mistakes that are made and curbs the chances of cases getting lost. Furthermore, please permit me to quote words spoken so eloquently by the great Nelson Mandela. Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
And I quote, "The true character of a society is revealed in how it treats its children," end of quote. Madam Speaker, let us draw our attention to Part 2, Section 10 of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill, which states that the CPA board should consist of, a permanent secretary, a social worker, a police officer, people who are in charge of protecting minors. But, Madam Speaker, with that, please explain to me why does the board consist of 11 seats, but not one is set aside for someone who has actually been a recipient of the services provided by the CPA bill? Madam Speaker, there is a need for someone on the board who will be able to empathize with these minors and their situations. Madam Speaker, this cannot be done if everyone that is sitting on the board hasn't experienced their trauma or walked a day in their shoes. Madam Speaker, there's an old saying that goes like this: people who have been in your shoes empathize with you, while those who haven't would sympathize with you. Moreover, Madam Speaker, the only way we can be sure that someone on the board is an actual beneficiary would be if a seat is set aside for them. Which brings me to my final point, Madam Speaker, which is the use of financial settlements. Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if you heard of the man who molested a minor that was left in his care by the mother. But, Madam Speaker, rather than him going to prison, this very said court system made him pay a sum of money to the victim. Madam Speaker, let's use a hypothetical scenario. Imagine if Peter grew up in a wealthy family and he happens to sexually assault a minor. He then goes to court and the judge orders him to pay approximately, let's say, $1,000. Wouldn't you say, Madam Speaker, that money is easy for him to pay? Madam Speaker, according to Aaron Beck, a famous psychiatrist who stated, please permit me to quote?
Permission granted.
And I quote, "Criminal offenses that are repeated by offenders are most likely caused by the lack of punishment that was given unto them," end of quote. Madam Speaker, the point I'm getting at is that the use of financial settlements leads to the abundance of repeat offenders because in their minds, they got off with a slap on the wrist. Madam Speaker, does money make the trauma go away? Does it help the victim sleep better at night? Does it take away the hurt and the pain that the family went through? As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I believe that the Child Protection Bill has lots of potential. But, Madam Speaker, let's not forget that potential energy is stored energy. And the only way we can achieve greatness with this bill is to ensure that all parties are fully knowledgeable about the role that they play in each and every child's life. I thank you.
Honorable Minister for Youth Development, Sports, Culture, and the Arts.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the bill brought before this honorable House today. Children are a gift from God. They are unique, crafted into perfection. After all, they are His masterpieces. Protecting and caring for this gift is one of the most important roles we have as individuals and as a society. Having this bill that emphasizes the care and protection of children is needed. Too many times we have heard of abuse, neglect, and rejection of our children. As little as they are, children play an important role in our communities, nation, and by extension, the world. If they are not protected, then the future will be in trouble. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Youth will be playing a vital role in the implementation of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill. It is our priority to care and protect our future generations, some of whom fall into the youth age category. Our passion is to ensure that our future is not robbed, Madam Speaker, by their innocence, their pride, and their identity by being abused. We want to ensure that they are not ill-treated by their parents, their relatives, and all others whom they may come in contact with. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Youth, I would like to draw your attention to these things highlighted in section 25 to 29 of the bill. Children in need of care and protection and mandatory reporting. Children on a whole, not only children who are sexual abused, can and should be cared for. Madam Speaker, there are different types of abuse that our children have been experiencing, such as abandonment, neglect, and rejection. Madam Speaker, also verbal, emotional, and domestic abuse. Children living in a home where there is suspicion of either one of these forms of abuse can, should, and will be removed from the home because they can be affected mentally and psychologically. This can cause psychological effects leading to the child being traumatized. In this case, the child's well-being is most important. One may ask, who gave the authority to remove children from their parents' home? In the cases of abuse where children may be at risk, the protection of the children becomes a state issue, and this bill gives the authority for the appropriate state mechanism to take action. Madam Speaker, Section 27 tells us who is mandated to report a case of abuse or suspected abuse. These are teachers, police, doctors, principals, daycare teachers, etc. But also notice, Madam Speaker, the bill does not imply that others should not or cannot report a crime, or they do not have an ethical or moral responsibility to do so. They are to report to the director or to a police officer, and without delay, the police must report to the director of child protection. Failure to do so, the person whom the report was made to can be fined a sum of $5,000 or a term imprisonment. Madam Speaker, let us exclude the term imprisonment and the fine. And let us zoom in on the disappointment that a child may feel if they confide in you and you fail them. The trauma they have to deal with. Madam Speaker, there was this little girl that was molested at the age of 8. The abuser was a family friend, Madam Speaker. She told her mom and nothing came out of it. It wasn't reported. And Madam Speaker, that child grew up with a trauma. She grew up with a hurt. She felt unprotected. She felt unloved, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, what if that child case was reported? What if that child had gotten the protection that she needed? She would have lived a life of freedom, a life protected, and a life of love, Madam Speaker. Given the authorities the power to hold the adults who turn a blind eye accountable, sends a message that we will not be lenient when it comes to our children. It is sad, Madam Speaker, that we must go to those lengths to ensure our children's safety. But hopefully with this initiative, we can have more citizens speaking out on behalf of the children. One of the main concerns of people testifying of abuse is exposure to the press. Section 29 ensures the protection of persons reporting suspected or the act of abuse. This should give more people the urge to report any signs of abuse they may witness or know of, knowing that they will be protected. Each case reported, Madam Speaker, is a child whose life has been spared of trauma and psychological issues. Madam Speaker, such bill is needed. Such bill is vital. Permission to have 1 minute, please? 30 seconds, please.
Honorable Member, 30 seconds granted.
Thank you. Such a bill, Madam Speaker, is important as we seek to protect our nation's children, youth, and future from all types of abuse. Let's care for them, let's protect them, and let's help them grow. I thank you.
Honorable Member for St. Andrew Northwest.
Madam Speaker, I do thank you for the privilege to address this honorable House today. And I would like to begin with two abbreviations that I learned during evangelism at my church, TTM and TMI. TTM simply means think, talk, move. Madam Speaker, too many times we witness individuals thinking and not talking. And later down the road, they have the audacity to say, you know, I was thinking about that. Or they may have the audacity to say, I had this idea at the time, but I didn't say anything about it. Madam Speaker, we also witness individuals thinking, talking, but not moving. In other words, we have an idea, we share that idea, but we don't act on that idea. Therefore, that great idea remains as winds and just mere words. But the only way we can ensure effective change and results is when we think carefully, talk, and move. Therefore, our brilliant ideas as young people will be shared. The other abbreviation I said, TMI, simply means total membership involvement. Madam Speaker, we can all agree that there is strength in numbers. When individual members of this honorable House think, talk, and move with their brilliant ideas, if every other members, in fact, shares interest in those life-changing, brilliant ideas, the mark we leave on our country will be phenomenal. You may be asking, Madam Speaker, well, what does that really have to do with Child Protection Authority? I'm getting to that now, Madam Speaker. I've said all that to say it is unarguable that this Child Protection and Authority Bill comprises of some relevant, acceptable ideas. With the inclusion of the suggested amendments that will be presented today, it will become remarkable. But if we don't think, talk, and move, and if there isn't total membership involvement, we wouldn't influence and cause effective change in our little island Grenada, and we're just wasting time here today. Madam Speaker, there are also some parts of the bill that needs to be revisited, where more thinking needs to be done, some of which was already identified and addressed by my colleagues. Part 3, Section 27 of the bill in question, as the leader of government business stated, addresses mandatory reporting of possible child abuse cases. In subsection 1, we see that only a handful of individuals are mandatorily required to do so due to various positions or occupations they may have. Madam Speaker, those persons are assured that their report will be anonymously kept, ensuring their safety. Madam Speaker, I can recall that regarding murder cases, right, and other criminal acts, every citizen is required to report any possible case, and the safety of their identity is sure. Madam Speaker, is our children of such little importance that we don't care if the vendor or the shopkeeper or even the bus conductor may have witnessed a possible child abuse case? As well, Madam Speaker, child abuse, in my eyes, and I'm sure we can all agree, is a criminal act. Thus must be treated like all other criminal acts, mandatory reporting for everyone who has reason to believe that there is a possible case of child abuse. In addition, the safety and the identity of those persons must be assured. As the Minister of Youth Development said, individuals can report on their own time and they can report on their own. But the identity is not protected like all others listed in the bill. Madam Speaker, the story told by the Minister of Labor should for this exact reason, ensure us or inform us as to why mandatory reporting for everyone is important. Madam Speaker, is our children of such little importance that we are not ensuring that they get the best services available? Part 2, subsection 10 of the Act in question speaks to the composition of the board that is responsible for managing the affairs of the Child Protection Authority. Madam Speaker, the composition of the board has a seat set aside for, and I quote, a medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act. I ask the question, why would we just need any medical practitioner? According to the Health Practitioners Act, someone can be a general, specialized, temporary, or conditional medical practitioner. Madam Speaker, it will be best if we are more specific as to which type of medical practitioner should sit on the board. And I don't think we want a temporary or conditional medical practitioner. Nor do we want any specialized medical practitioner we can find. A medical practitioner can be specialized in cardiology, neurology, dermatology, gynecology. Therefore, we must be specific. Madam Speaker, I assure this honorable House that our best choice of a medical practitioner is a general pediatric doctor who will be able to effectively render services to children and the board. Madam Speaker, I would like to linger a little longer on this section. The list of available seats on the board has one set aside for someone with a financial background. There are some honorable members sitting here today who may or have been an accountant, or rather an account manager at a call center. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, financial literally means, may I quote, Madam Speaker?
Permission granted.
Relating to finance, and end of quote, and background, permission to quote, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
The conditions that form the setting within which something is experienced, end of quote. Therefore, that same account manager working at a call center who have just for, let's say, 3 weeks, navigated and assisted customers with payments and other financial assistance can be considered someone with a financial background, as well as the bank manager with his bachelor's degree in accounting, business administration, or finance, or even that young lady with a PhD in accounting. And if we want to bring this home, Madam Speaker, an accountant licensed and approved by the Inland Revenue Department or the Institute of Chartered Accountants of the Eastern Caribbean Agreement is also an individual with financial background. Madam Speaker, some of the honorable members may be thinking, well, why does the opposition leader want us to live in a straitjacket with him? Madam Speaker, we are unsure of who will sit on the authority or in our seats in the next 5 years, or even those who may sit on the board. Therefore, we should not leave any wiggle room for others to disadvantage this bill and our commitment to our children. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I hereby move the following amendments. Number 1, the inclusion of the following words: any other individual who has a reason to believe that a child is being abused and is in need of protection under Part 3, Section 27, titled Mandatory Reporting, subsection 1, as H of the said subsection. Number 2, substituting the words a medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act under Part 2, Section 10, titled Composition of the Board, subsection 1I, with the words a general pediatric practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act. And number 3, under the previously stated part and section, subsection 1J, the substitution of the words a person with a financial background with the words an accountant in good standing with the Inland Revenue Department.
Honorable members, the member for St. Andrew Northwest has moved an amendment to the resolution, to the bill. In accordance with our standing orders, members speaking on the amendment must limit the contents of their speech to matters raised in the amendment. Please be reminded that members who have already spoken may speak again, but only on matters raised in the proposed amendment. I would allow 2 minutes for the mover of the amendment and 1 minute for any other member wishing to speak on the proposed amendment. Honorable members, the question proposed is that the amendment be made. Honorable member.
Madam Speaker, a general pediatric doctor is someone with the knowledge and skills to manage a wide range of health problems and concerns in children and young people. And since the primary and most important purpose of the bill, found in Part 1, subsection 3, Section 3 rather, subsection 1A is, and I quote, the care and protection of a child from abuse and neglect in a manner that ensures that the best interests of the child are given paramount consideration, end of quote. To ensure effective assistance for a child, or best decision for a health practitioner is someone who has been trained to provide medical assistance for children. Madam Speaker, just like we want the most beneficial medical practitioner, we would like the same for someone with a financial background, and the most useful personnel to provide financial advice and assistance to the board. Madam Speaker, we do have Grenadian citizens who are licensed and in regular standing with the regulations of the Inland Revenue Department, who is responsible for approving the license of accountants. Therefore, I encourage that the seat is filled with a suggestion from the Inland Revenue Department or someone who was approved and licensed by the Inland Revenue Department. Madam Speaker, as previously stated, child abuse is and will forever be a criminal act, and our children deserve the best services we can give them. I thank you.
Honorable member.
Madam Speaker, according to Section 10 of subsection I of the Child Protection Adoption Act, it says that a medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of Health Practitioner Act, based on the amendment, Madam Speaker, a medical practitioner includes that of a pediatrician or general pediatrics. The ratio of a pediatric doctor compared
Honorable
to that
member,
of general...
You didn't wait for the motion to be seconded. Could you please have your seat? Honorable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to second the amendment proposed by the opposition leader. I would like to echo again, Madam Speaker, child abuse is a criminal act and should be treated like one. Therefore, like murder and criminal acts, why not ensure the bill specify mandatory reporting for every citizen of Grenada and ensure that they are safe and protected? Why take additional precautions for other malpractices and not child abuse? Madam Speaker, notice amendment number 2 specifically says a general pediatrician. Pediatrician can also be specialized in other subcategories, specifically children such as pediatric cardiologists, pediatric neurologists, and more. But we don't need a doctor who is a specialized pediatrician, but a general pediatrician. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member.
Madam Speaker, I would like to make a comment as relates to the amendment, Section 10, subsection I.
Go ahead.
A medical practitioner includes that of a pediatrician and a general pediatrics. The ratio of pediatrician and pediatric doctors and general doctors in Grenada is relatively low. So this amendment makes it very rigid and restricted. What happens when you cannot get a pediatrician to approve sitting on the board? What happens then? Besides, the job of the board is just to overlook and manage the CPA, whether you are a general doctor or a pediatrician. What matters is the knowledge on childcare and protecting children, which they both should have. Also, subsection 10, subsection B, similarly, it is restricted. What happens if someone from Inland Revenue disapproves of being on the board? What happens to the board then? What is so special about someone working in Inland Revenue? What matters is the financial background. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, frankly speaking, the honorable member of the opposition is contradicting himself. Firstly, this is an unnecessary amendment to add a person specializing in pediatrics to the bill. On Ireland, we already have a shortage of medical practitioners, and thus, to specify that the medical practitioner be a pediatrician would put too much pressure to actually get one. Lastly, I say a general practitioner can do the same job as a pediatrician and very effectively too. Thank you.
Are there any other contributions to the motion? Honorable Member.
Madam Speaker, have you heard the phrase, only your best is good enough? Well, that's exactly what my fellow colleague, opposition leader, is presenting. The children of our country deserve our best Child Protection Authority Board, our best medical practitioner, given the circumstances, who in this case will definitely be a general pediatric medical practitioner, our best financial advisor and accountant, licensed by our very own Inland and Revenue Department, whom we can take recommendations from.
Honorable Member for St. Patrick East. Honorable Member, could you please unmute?
Of children are criminals. Madam Speaker, it pains me to know that there are such corrupt, revolting individuals walking our streets alongside us and our children. We cannot just pull them off the streets, but if we require mandatory report for child abuse cases or possible child abuse case, we will stop or prevent much more abusive and traumatizing circumstances for our children. Madam Speaker, we can also offer the best services available and most useful persons for our children to sit on the Child Protection Board. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the amendments be made to Section 10 of the bill in subsection 1 by deleting the words "a medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act" and substituting the words "therefore, a general pediatrics medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provision of the Health Practitioners Act" as I of subsection 1. In subsection 1, by deleting the words "a person with a financial background" and substituting the words "therefore, an accountant in good standing with the Inland Revenue Department" as J of subsection 1. And in section 27 of the bill, In subsection 1, by including the words any other individual who has reason to believe that a child is being and is in need of protection as H of subsection 1. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay.
Nay.
I think the nays have it, the nays do have it. The amendment has not been agreed. Honorable member.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to give support to an important legislation brought before this honorable House. The abuse and neglect of children is an awkward discussion. It raises so many emotions in me, and after listening to the deliberation of the House, it is also clearly an emotional one for us all. Being abused is a traumatic experience that no one should face, especially children. According to Hubert Ward, permission to quote?
Permission granted.
And I quote, child abuse casts a shadow the length of a lifetime, end of quote. Madam President, John was just 3 years old when the horrific scene of the death of his mother and the maltreatment from his cruel and violent father literally struck him down. His dad often beat, stripped, fed him like a dog, and confined him in the basement where he was unable to communicate with the outside world. He didn't speak for 3.5 years, Madam President, which meant he wasn't able to ask anyone for help. He experienced all the different types of child abuse, and his life turned into a living hell. When John finally started school, Madam President, he experienced shame, neglect, and psychological abuse from his peers because he was mute and was different from the others. As a result of this, Madam President, he started exhibiting other behavioral problems like aggressiveness, violence, stealing, depression, and learning disability. According to UNICEF, permission to quote?
Permission granted.
And I quote, there is a significant evidence that violence, exploitation, and abuse can affect children's physical and mental health in the short and longer terms. As a result, impairing the child's ability to learn, socialize, and impact the transition to adulthood with adverse consequences later in life. End of quote. Madam President, it is very disheartening that children are being mistreated every single day by adults who are meant to love and care for them. According to the World Health Organization, permission to quote?
Permission granted.
And I quote, nearly 3 in 4 children, or 300 million children, aged 2 to 4 years regularly suffer physical punishment or psychological violence at the hand of parents and caregivers. End of quote. Madam President, it is therefore critical to break the cycle of violence. So this is why addressing child protection is so crucial and should be prevented. The proposed Child Protection and Adoption Bill will strengthen the legislative response for child protection matters in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, with the hope of safeguarding our children from being impaired later on by those adverse consequences. Madam President, my colleagues would have emotively spoken on the principles and circumstances in which it is appropriate for a child to be taken into care as provided in the bill. Madam President, it was outlined in Part 4 under Section 30 that a thorough fact-finding assessment first have to be carried out, and this gives directive to the Director of the Child Protection Authority. Madam President, this bill also empowers and gives the Director legal authority with directive and report to further carry out this process for further determination of the child's safety by considering whether a child or a young person has been abused or neglected or is at risk of abuse or neglect. The question is, how do we determine if a child is safe or a child is in need of protection? Madam President,
Honorable Member, let me now remind you that we are in the sitting of the lower house and you are to address me as Madam Speaker.
Oh, Madam Speaker, sorry, I humbly apologize. Madam Speaker, permission to quote?
Permission granted.
Okay. According to the World Health Organization, there are risk factors that are associated with the increased risk of harm for children and young people, such as a family history of violence, including domestic violence or mental, physical health issue for the parent or caregivers, which affects the child's ability to care for the child or young person in care. Conclusively, it is always said, it takes a whole village to raise a child, which means the underlying basis of it is that a child is not just raised by a biological parent, that in fact it is much more complex and much more vibrant and dynamic process. Everyone in the community gets involved in this process of raising the child. Everyone in the community carries within them something that a child is going to need in order to be successfully grow up. Can you permit 1 minute, please? Thanks.
30 seconds, granted.
Okay, thank you. In the same spirit, Madam President, I want to submit to each person sitting here on this momentous occasion, it takes a whole community to raise a whole person. I thank you.
Honorable Member for St. Patrick East.
Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to stand in this honorable house today. Madam Speaker, allow me to begin by telling you a story of one of my childhood friends. Her name I will not reveal, but she was young like we were, happy we thought, and grew up in church like we did. One evening while practicing for our annual Christmas program, she urinated on herself, or like Grenadians would say, she peed herself. It happened once, twice, but then continuously. We laughed as children, but little did we know she was being sexually abused. She went into the system, lived at a home until she was no longer required to. She is now out of the system, back into the same village that abused her, and now pregnant. Pregnant without a job, pregnant without education, pregnant with no clue what to do next. That cycle of being in the system and in poverty may just repeat itself. Madam Speaker, I studied the Child Protection and Adoption Bill, and not once did I see ways in which a child would transition into the system and out as an adult. I saw no plan that these poor children could use to be self-sustained or independent. According to DANLIPS 2021, children aging out of foster care enter adulthood with few of the safety nets typical teenagers may take for granted. These young adults often don't have grandparents to give them to give them a used car or a savvy cousin to help them navigate the college admissions process. Most importantly, children who age out typically do not have parents willing or able to help them financially when the rent is due or when the refrigerator is empty. As a result of this significant disadvantage, youth who age out of the system succumb to poor life outcomes. Madam Speaker, likewise, in Grenada, many children leave the system without a clue what to do next. Madam Speaker, in order to break the cycle of leaving the system and succumbing to poor life outcomes, the opposition suggests that a clear transition plan should be made to aid children leaving the system. This transition plan should include finding a place for the young adult to live, aiding them in finding a job, opening a bank account and savings, and assisting them in getting into college or attaining higher education. With this plan, young adults can get out of the system with surety of what comes next. Madam Speaker, Part 8, Section 97G of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill states the rights of a child. The rights of a child: A child in the care service shall have the following rights: A, to be fed, clothed, and nurtured according to prescribed minimum standards, and to be given the same quality of care as other children in the placement. B, to be consulted and, according to the child's abilities, express his views about significant decisions affecting that child, to be reasonably privacy and to possession of the child's personal belongings, to be free from corporal punishment, to be informed of the standard of behavior expected by the caregivers and of the consequences of not meeting the standard. Madam Speaker, what I read was the rights of a child, but the right for an education is absent in this section of the Act. I must indicate that other parts of the Child Protection and Adoption Bill briefly speak about education, but it is not under the rights of a child. Madam Speaker, are we saying that a child does not have a right to an education? Madam Speaker, allow me to quote a famous quote from Nelson Mandela.
Permission granted.
And I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Madam Speaker, many children leave the system without the proper education. Madam Speaker, I spoke with one of the social workers at the Child Protection and Authority, and they said to me that in some cases, children who leave the system without proper education often end up homeless, thieves, jobless, and poor. Madam Speaker, this is why it is important that we ensure that these children leave the system with a proper education, and not just primary or secondary education, but also tertiary education. These children need to be given a chance to achieve their goals academically, but that cannot be done without an adequate transition process. Madam Speaker, with an education, these children can create a better life for themselves, and they can leave the system knowing that they are now qualified for a job. This will break the cycle of poverty. Madam Speaker, a proper system needs to be put in place to ensure that these children live foster care and they have something to turn to. Until these problems are included in this bill, it cannot be supported. I thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government's Business.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I cannot believe that some honorable members stand here today opposing such legislation. So much noise was made, but unfortunately, not many valid opposing points. Madam Speaker, firstly, the bill does give the Child Protection Authority the authority to provide preventative measures for child abuse. Moreover, programs are in place in schools and communities to raise awareness for child abuse, educate persons, and by extension, prevent child abuse. Madam Speaker, the honorable members of the opposing side criticize so many aspects of our society, and it stirs in my mind so many questions such as, what are the restrictions they would like to implement? Because we have not heard any solutions from them. Would they like to stop bus drivers and conductors from making their daily bread? Or stop a father from building a relationship with his son or daughter because someone suspected him of abuse? Madam Speaker, such emphasis was made for mandatory reporting. However, Madam Speaker, mandatory reporting targets figures or persons that may be involved in the life of a child. For example, school teachers, counselors, principals, social workers, or hospital administrators. And this is sufficient. A doctor may be able to see signs of sexual abuse or physical abuse through examination. However, it will be difficult to prove if everyone in your society is considered to be a mandatory reporter. Not only is this harsh, but it will also be very difficult to provide evidence for. Not everyone in the society has a professional opinion and the ability to properly judge and assess signs of abuse. Thus, Madam Speaker, I want to stress the relevance of this bill. There is nothing in this bill that is inadequate or unnecessary, and if there is, I invite the opposition to send their concerns in writing so that perhaps any actually valid concerns that they have can be taken in a Senate amendment. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act shortly entitled Child Protection and Adoption be read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
A bill for an act to provide for the care and protection of children, to make provisions for the adoption of children in Grenada, and to provide for matters incidental thereto and purposes connected therewith. Shortly entitled, the Child Protection and Adoption Bill.
Honorable member.
Earlier in the sitting, we omitted to confirm the minutes after them being acknowledged as read. I want to remedy this now for record. I therefore move that the minutes be confirmed.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the minutes of the youth meeting held at this honorable house on the 20th day of October 2021 be confirmed. Honorable member.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill part by part.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill part by part. Honorable members, the question is that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill part by part. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. Honorable members, this House is now in committee.
Part 1, Preliminary.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 1, Preliminary, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Parts 1 preliminary forms part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
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 Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 2, Establishment of Child Protection Authority and Child Protection Board.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 2, Establishment of Child Protection Authority and Child Protection Board, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 2, Establishment of Child Protection Authority and Child Protection Board, forms part of the bill. As many of that favor say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. The nays do have it.
Part 3, Care and Protection of Children.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 3, Care and Protection of Children, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 3, Care and Protection of Children, forms part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 4, Investigation and Assessment.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 4, Investigation and Assessment, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 4, Investigation and Assessment, forms part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes have it.
Part 5, Emergency Protection.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 5, Emergency Protection, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 5, Emergency Protection, forms part of the bill. As many are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 6, Assessment Orders.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 6, Assessment Orders, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 6, Assessment Orders, forms part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 7, Care Orders and Supervision Orders.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 7, Care Orders and Supervision Orders, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 7, Care Orders and Supervision Orders, forms part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 8, Child Care Services.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 8, Child Care Services, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 8, Child Care Services, forms part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 9, Adoption.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 9, Adoption, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 9, Adoption, forms part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Part 10, Placement of a Child for Adoption.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 10, placement of a child for adoption, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 10, placement of child for adoption, forms part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Part 11, adoption proceedings.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 11, adoption proceedings, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 11, adoption proceeding, forms part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Part 12, adoption register.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 12, adoption register, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 12, adoption register, forms part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Part 13, offenses.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 13, offenses, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 13, offenses, forms part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Part 14, miscellaneous.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 14, miscellaneous, forms part of the bill. Honorable member, the question is that Part 14, miscellaneous, forms part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
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 Those on the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Part 15, repeal and transitional provisions.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that Part 15, repeal and transitional provision, forms part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that Part 15, repeal and transitional provision, forms part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
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 Those on the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Madam Chairperson, since we have omitted Part 2 of the bill, I do propose that we implement a new clause and a new part to replace the Part 2 that was omitted.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that a new part be implemented in substituting Part 2 of this bill. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes those do have it.
Madam Chairperson, in regards to the new part 2, I do propose that we keep the subsection 7, subsection 8, and 9 of the previous clause, and we do keep some of subsection 10, which would be section 10 rather, subsection 1, A, C, D, E, F, G, and H. We also do keep subsection J. I do propose that these parts form parts of Part 2 of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 2, Section 7 and 8 be kept, along with Section 10, subsection 1, A, C, D, E, F, G, H, and J. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Madam Chairperson, I do propose that we make some additions to section 10 of Part 2, subsection 1, implementing that a medical practitioner, or rather a general medical practitioner, be used, specifying that we'll use a general medical practitioner and leave no wiggle room for a temporary or conditional or specialized medical practitioner to be used pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act. Therefore, may I restate, a general medical practitioner appointed pursuant to the provisions of the Health Practitioners Act. I beg that this subsection be part of subsection 1, serving as subsection 1I of section 10 of part 2.
Honorable members, so you are saying that we should substitute general practitioner for what?
I'm saying that we substitute medical practitioner with general medical practitioner.
Okay. Honorable members, the question is that of Part 2, Section 10, Subsection 1, medical practitioner should be substituted with general medical practitioner. As many as of that opinion say aye.
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 Those on the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
Madam Chairperson, also beg that and propose that we substitute subsection 1JA of section 10 with the words a person appointed or a financial advisor in right standing with the Inland Revenue Department. I repeat, with the words a financial advisor in right standing with the Inland Revenue Department.
Honorable members, the question is that in subsection 10, that in section 10, subsection 1, that the words any other individual who has a reason to believe
for subsection 1JA, we're substituting for the words a financial advisor in right standing with the Inland Revenue Department.
Right. So for subsection 1JA, substituting the words, by deleting the words a person with a financial background and substituting the word an accountant in a good standing with the Inland Revenue Department. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
I do have last proposal, Madam Chairperson. I do propose that we keep all the remainder of part 2 of the bill in question.
Honorable members, the question is that we keep the remainder of part 2 of the bill in question. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. Honorable member.
Madam Chairman, I move that the House resumes and the Chairman reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the House resumes and the Chairman reports progress on the bill. Honorable members, the question is that the House resumes and the Chairman reports progress on the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say no. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. Honorable members, this House now resumes. Honorable members, I am pleased to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and was passed with amendment. Honourable
Madam
Member.
Speaker, I move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the chairman's report be adopted. Honourable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, I move that the bill, the Child Protection and Adoption Act, be read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a third time and passed.
Madam.
Honourable Member.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Just one point of order that we are now proposing an amended bill and not the original bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill as amended be read for a third time and passed. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
A bill for an act to provide for the care and protection of children, to make provisions for the adoption of children in Grenada, and to provide for matters incidental thereto and purposes connected therewith, shortly entitled the Child Protection and Adoption Bill. As amended.
Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, I move that this Honourable House be adjourned until the 3rd day of March 2022.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that this Honourable House stands adjourned, signed it aye, until the 3rd day of March 2022. Honourable members, the question is that this Honourable House stands adjourned until the 3rd day of March 2022. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those on the contrary say nay. The ayes have it, the ayes do have it. The business of this National Youth Parliament stands adjourned.